What if I told you the story we all know is a lie? Not a malicious lie, but a cover story. A simplified, moralistic fable told to children, masking a truth so profound and terrifying it had to be buried under millennia of myth. We all know the story of the Great Flood. A man, a boat, two of every animal. A righteous God, a wicked world. A reset. But we never ask the most important question. We're told the world was wicked, but what specifically was this wickedness? What crime was so profound, so unnatural, that the only solution was a planetary-scale extermination, a global reset of the human experiment? The answer, we believe, has been hidden in plain sight, in the anomalous stones of the world's oldest temple, and in the forbidden verses of the world's most famous book. The flood, we will demonstrate, was not to punish humanity for simple sin. It was a targeted, surgical strike, a planetary reset with a single, horrifying purpose: to exterminate the Nephilim. Our investigation begins not with a book, but with stone. Deep in the plains of modern-day Turkey, there is a place that has forced us to rip up every history book we have ever written. It's called Göbekli Tepe. For decades, the story of human civilization was simple, linear, and comfortable. We were told it began around 3500 BCE in Sumer, in the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia. The timeline was set in stone. First, humans discovered agriculture. This agricultural surplus allowed people to settle down, form villages, then towns, then cities. From cities, complex society emerged. From complex society, we got priests, kings, writing, and eventually monumental architecture, temples, palaces. First agriculture, then architecture. This was the law. Göbekli Tepe shatters this law. Discovered in the 1990s by the brilliant and dedicated German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, Göbekli Tepe is a sprawling complex of massive, key-shaped limestone pillars. Some of these pillars stand over 18 feet tall and weigh upwards of 16 tons. They are not rough, unhewn rock. They are carved elegantly with complex and unsettling depictions of animals, spiders, snakes, vultures, and lions. They are arranged in sophisticated circular enclosures. This is, without question, the world's first cathedral, the world's first monumental complex. And here is the anchor, the 100% fact that unravels everything. Carbon dating places the construction of Göbekli Tepe at 9,600 BCE. That is 11,600 years ago. Let's be perfectly clear. This is not a small error in the timeline. This is a chasm. This is 7,000 years before the pyramids of Giza. It is 6,000 years before the invention of writing in Sumer. It is 6,000 years before the first city. According to the old, comfortable timeline, the people who built this, the only people who could have built this, were primitive hunter-gatherers. This is the central, impossible paradox. We are told that small, nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers armed with nothing but flint tools, living hand to mouth, suddenly decided to band together, not to build a village, not to build a granary, but to quarry, transport, and perfectly erect a 16-ton megalithic complex that would challenge our engineers today. It is, from a mainstream perspective, an impossibility. It is like finding a jet engine in a 14th century medieval village. It simply does not fit. Klaus Schmidt himself, the man who excavated it, famously said, "First came the temple, then the city." He proposed that the very act of building this temple, a massive religious or social project, is what forced humanity to invent agriculture, to feed the army of workers required for its construction. This flips our entire understanding of history on its head. But we are here as investigators, and when we see an anomaly, we must dig deeper. The how is impossible, but the why is even more disturbing, because after existing for perhaps 1,000 years, Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried. Let that sink in.
Around 8000 BCE, the entire site, this magnificent, world-changing complex, was deliberately, painstakingly, and perfectly buried under millions of tons of earth, flint, and animal bone. They didn't just abandon it. They didn't just let it fall to ruin. They entombed it. They erased it from history, preserving it like a time capsule. Why? Why would the primitive men who spent generations building this masterpiece then spend generations burying it? Mainstream history has no answer. They offer guesses, a change in religious belief, a ritual burial of the site itself. But these are just stories, placeholders for an answer they do not have. This is our pivot question. This is the first loose thread we must pull.
Mainstream history cannot explain how Göbekli Tepe was built or why it was buried. It is an anomaly, a ghost from a time that should not have existed. It's a structure built with impossible knowledge at an impossible time.
What if the people who built it were not the primitive hunter-gatherers we imagined? What if they were the survivors of something else? What if this temple wasn't a cathedral in the way we understand it, but an observatory, a warning, a vault of knowledge?
What if they weren't just burying a temple, but hiding a secret? Or more chillingly, what if they were hiding from something?
The stones are silent. They present us with the anomaly. To find the why, we must turn from stone to text. We must look at the stories that our own ancestors told, stories from after this impossible time.
When we look for the why, we inevitably turn to the most profound collection of origin stories on Earth, the Book of Genesis. We think we know the story of the Great Flood. It begins in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And so God decides to destroy the world. We have read this, we have heard it, and in our familiarity we have become blind, because we, all of us, have been taught to skip the first 4 verses. We skip the prologue, we skip the reason. Before the story of Noah and his ark, before the declaration of wickedness, Genesis gives us a very specific, very strange, and very uncomfortable prologue. It is the smoking gun. It is Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. Let's read it not as a fable, but as an investigator's report.
Verse 1. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose.
We must stop here. The text presents us with 2 distinct populations. It does not say men and women. It says the Bnei Ha-Elohim, the sons of God, and the Bnot Ha-Adam, the daughters of man. Who are these sons of God?
For centuries, theologians have debated this. One camp, the Sethite view, argues it's a metaphor. The good descendants of Seth intermarried with the wicked descendants of Cain. It's a clean, tidy, safe explanation. But it is not what the text says. The other, far more ancient interpretation is that these were not humans. The Bnei Ha-Elohim, the sons of the gods, were divine beings, angels. Angels who came to earth, saw human women, and lusted after them.
The text continues. And the Lord said,
My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. A strange cryptic verse. A countdown is being initiated. A striving is happening. But it's verse 4 that blows the entire story wide open. Verse 4. There were Nephilim in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became Gibborim, which were of old, men of renown. This is not a metaphor. This is a biological report. Sons of God plus daughters of men equals Nephilim.
The text is explicit. A hybrid race was born. The word Nephilim is often translated as giants, but its etymological root, nephal, means the fallen ones. And what were these fallen ones like? The text calls them Gibborim, mighty men, men of renown. This is the same word used to describe figures like Gilgamesh, the great superhuman kings of ancient legend. And immediately after this verse, immediately after the text establishes the existence of this hybrid fallen race, we get verse 5. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. The wickedness wasn't theft, it wasn't war as we know it. The wickedness, the corruption, was this unnatural, forbidden genetic hybridization, the pollution of the human line.
This text, right at the beginning of our most sacred book, is an echo of a story so explosive that it was almost completely erased. Almost. Because while Genesis gives us the 4-verse summary, another, much older text gives us the full, unredacted report. It is called the Book of Enoch.
The Book of Enoch is one of the most important non-canonical texts in history. It was considered sacred by many Second Temple Jews and early Christians. It was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It is explicitly quoted in the New Testament, in the book of Jude. This was not some obscure text. This was, for a time, mainstream. And Enoch's version of Genesis 6 is not a short prologue. It is the central event of the pre-flood world. In the Book of Enoch, it's not the sons of God. It's a specific class of them, a group of 200 watchers, angels, led by an individual named Samyaza. They descend on Mount Hermon. They see the daughters of men. They make a pact, a conspiracy, to go in unto them and beget children. This is the great sin, and it's a twofold sin. First, they interbreed. The resulting offspring, the Nephilim, are described in horrific detail. They are giants, 3,000 cubits tall, a clear symbolic exaggeration, but the point is made. They are not just big, they are wrong. They have a voracious, unnatural appetite. Enoch reports they devoured all the acquisitions of men. When men could no longer supply them, they turned against them and devoured mankind. It is a story of a biological experiment gone horribly wrong. A parasitic apex predator is created, and it is consuming the planet. Second, the Watchers teach forbidden arts to humanity. This isn't just sin, it's specific technological knowledge. Azazel teaches the making of swords, and of knives, and of shields, and made known to them the metals of the earth, bracelets and ornaments, weaponry and metallurgy. Samyaza teaches enchantments and root cuttings, pharmacology, genetics. Arormos teaches the resolving of enchantments. Barakajal teaches the signs of the stars, astronomy. Kokabel teaches the constellations, astrology, advanced cosmology. In Enoch's version, humanity is not wicked on its own.
It is corrupted by forbidden knowledge from the Watchers and preyed upon by their unnatural hybrid children, the Nephilim. The wickedness of Genesis 6 is this specific chaos. And in Enoch, the why of the flood is stated without any ambiguity. The good angels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, look down from heaven and see the earth filled with violence. They report to God, saying, "From the cries of their blood, the souls of men make their suit," saying, "Bring our cause before the Most High." And the Most High, God, responds. He declares, "The earth and all that is in it shall be destroyed, and a deluge is about to come upon the whole earth." But here is the critical surgical instruction. He speaks to the angel Gabriel. "Proceed against the bastards and the reprobates and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the Watchers from amongst men. Set them one against another, that they may destroy one another in battle." And then he tells Noah to build the ark, to escape, so that his seed may be preserved for all the generations of the world. This is our mythological bridge. The pivot question is unavoidable. What if this isn't myth, but a distorted memory? What if the Book of Enoch isn't a fantasy, but a historical report? A report from a pre-cataclysmic world, written by survivors who tried to explain what happened, why their world ended. What if the sons of God and the daughters of men were not angels and humans, but two different populations of human or near human? What if one was advanced? This is where our investigation leaves the safe harbor of history and wades into the fringe. But as investigators, we must follow the evidence, even when it leads to uncomfortable places. We have 100% fact, Göbekli Tepe, an impossible stone temple built by hunter-gatherers at 9600 BCE, and then mysteriously buried. We have an ancient story, Genesis 6 and the Book of Enoch, a story of Watchers, sons of God, who descend, interbreed with daughters of men, teach them forbidden technology, and create a hybrid race, the Nephilim. This corruption becomes so great that a great flood is sent specifically to exterminate them, while a pure genetic line, Noah, is saved to reset the world. Now we ask the what-if question. Let's strip the supernatural language from the report. Let's reread Genesis 6 and Enoch as if they are anthropological field notes from a lost pre-cataclysmic world. What if the sons of God, Watchers, were not angels? What if they were the survivors, the last remnants of a highly advanced pre-existing civilization, a global maritime progenitor race that existed before the last ice age, a civilization that we might call Atlantean, for lack of a better term, a civilization that possessed high knowledge, astronomy, engineering, genetics, metallurgy, the exact forbidden arts that Enoch claims the Watchers taught. And what if the daughters of men were exactly what mainstream archaeology says they were? The indigenous, nomadic, hunter-gatherer populations, our Homo sapien ancestors that populated the world at that time, the very people who were supposedly incapable of building Göbekli Tepe on their own. Now picture the scenario. The progenitor civilization, perhaps global, perhaps based on a now sunken landmass, begins to crumble. Maybe through internal strife, or maybe, as we'll see in Part 4, because they know a cataclysm is on its way. A faction of these progenitors, the Watchers, goes native. They abandon their mission. They set themselves up as gods to the primitive local populations. They take wives from the local daughters of men, and they teach them. Suddenly, the Neolithic revolution is not an invention. It is an inheritance, a technological package. Agriculture, architecture, astronomy is given to humanity, or perhaps stolen for them. This would explain the impossible knowledge behind Göbekli Tepe. It wasn't built by hunter-gatherers. It was built with hunter-gatherers, directed by this advanced progenitor class. It was their knowledge, their design, but local labor. Klaus Schmidt's temple that inspired agriculture. This theory fits it perfectly. But there was a problem, a biological problem. The Nephilim. What if this interbreeding, this cross between the advanced progenitor Homo sapien line and the indigenous Homo sapien line, was problematic? We are dealing with two populations that may have been separated for thousands of years. Or, to go even further into the fringe, what if the progenitors were not quite Homo sapien? What if they were a surviving high-tech branch of a sister species? A high Neanderthal, a Denisovan? This is pure speculation, but it would explain why the offspring were unnatural. Let's explore the problem of the Nephilim. Biological scenario. The hybrids are born with genetic defects, perhaps acromegaly or gigantism leading to the giant legends. Perhaps they are sterile, like a mule, or unstable. Perhaps their voracious appetite in Enoch is a reference to a rampant, uncontrolled metabolism. They are a failed biological experiment. Social scenario. The hybrids are not defective. They are superior. They are the Gibborim, the mighty men, stronger, smarter, longer-lived. They become the men of renown. They are the first superhuman kings, the first warlords. They use their inherited strength and knowledge to dominate and oppress the normal human population. The devouring in Enoch is not literal cannibalism, but social and economic tyranny. In either scenario, this is the corruption. This is the wickedness. The progenitor civilization, or at least the loyalist faction of it, the Elohim or the Most High in the story, sees this. Their experiment on planet Earth has been contaminated. Their watchers have fallen, gone rogue. Their hybrid grandchildren, the Nephilim, are either biological monsters or social tyrants, and they are filling the earth with violence. The entire human project is a failure. It is polluted genetically and socially. It needs a reset. A loyalist progenitor, let's call him the architect or the lord of the story, sees a pure human, a man who is perfect in his generations. This is Noah. What does perfect in his generations mean? It doesn't mean morally perfect. The original Hebrew, tamim bedoratav, is a genetic term. It's the same word used in Leviticus to describe a sacrificial animal without blemish. Noah was genetically pure, uncorrupted. He had no Watcher or Nephilim DNA. He is selected. His family is selected. They are given instructions to preserve the pure human line and the pure, i.e., non-corrupted, animal lines. They are told to build an ark. But an ark against what? This whole fringe theory, this science fiction epic of progenitors, watchers, and Nephilim, sounds like a wild fantasy. It sounds wild until you look at the clock. What could cause a global reset like this? What could cause a great flood so vast that it could wipe the slate clean, exterminating the coastal civilizations of the Nephilim warlords while allowing a pure line to survive in the highlands or on a boat?
The progenitors, the watchers with their advanced knowledge of astronomy, the signs of the stars from Enoch. What if they knew it was coming? What if the flood wasn't sent by God, but was simply predicted by gods?
For over a century, the guiding principle of geology was uniformitarianism, the idea that the present is the key to the past. Change is slow, gradual, and constant. A great flood, a global cataclysm, that was myth, that was religion, not science. That comfort, that safe view of our planet is now dead. We have entered a new scientific era, the era of catastrophism. We now know as a 100% scientific fact that our planet's history is not a gentle slope. It is a staircase with long periods of calm punctuated by sudden violent vertical drops. Our investigation now turns to the how. We have the why, the Nephilim. We need the mechanism. We need to look at the exact time of our archaeological anchor. Göbekli Tepe, 9,600 BCE or 11,600 years ago. What was happening on planet Earth exactly at this time? The answer is quite simply the single most violent climate change event in modern human history. It's called the Younger Dryas. Let's break down the scientific timeline.
Phase 1, the world before, the progenitor world. Around 14,500 years ago, the last great ice age was ending. The planet was warming. The massive ice sheets over North America and Europe were melting. Sea levels were rising. This was a warm, wet, stable period, a perfect time for a global maritime civilization, our progenitors, to flourish along the new coastlines. Phase 2, the impact, the fire from heaven. Then, 12,900 years ago, something happened. Instantly, with no warning, the planet is plunged back into a full-blown ice age. Temperatures in the northern hemisphere plummet by 15 degrees Celsius in less than a decade. For 1,200 years, the world freezes. This is the Younger Dryas cold snap. What could do this? For years, this was a mystery. But a new, powerful, and yes, fringe theory has become the dominant suspect: the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. A group of scientists known as the Comet Research Group has presented overwhelming evidence. At 12,900 BP, a fragmented comet, perhaps miles wide, impacted the Earth. It didn't hit land, it hit the ice sheet, the Laurentide ice sheet over North America. The evidence? A black mat layer found in geological strata across the globe, a thin dark line in the dirt. Inside this black mat, nanodiamonds only form under extreme pressure and temperature. High-temperature microspherules, droplets of molten rock, flash fried. A soot spike, evidence of global wildfires. A platinum spike, a signature element of cosmic impacts. The effect? The impact flash melts parts of the ice sheet, sending trillions of tons of superheated water vapor and debris into the atmosphere. This black mat, soot, dust, blocks the sun. The planet is plunged into a nuclear winter. This is the fire from the sky. This is the long winter. And, most importantly, this event wipes out the dominant megafauna of the planet: the woolly mammoth, the saber-toothed cat, the giant ground sloth. All gone instantly. It also wipes out the Clovis people, the dominant human culture of North America. This is the end of the progenitor world. Their civilization is shattered. But this is not the flood. This is the prelude. The Watchers and their Nephilim children survive this, but their world is broken.
Phase 3, the flood, the meltwater pulse. The world stays frozen for 1,200 years. And then, at 11,600 years ago, that's 9,600 BCE, it ends, even more suddenly than it began. In a period of 1 to 3 years, global temperatures spike. The long winter is over. This is the exact date that our archaeological anchor Göbekli Tepe is being built. Why did the Younger Dryas end so suddenly? We don't know for sure. Perhaps another impact, or the Earth's climate snapping back. But we know what happened next. The 1,200-year cold snap had held back the melting. Now, all at once, the dams break. This is the real Great Flood. It's not 40 days of rain. It is called by geologists Meltwater Pulse 1b. The ice dams holding back continent-sized glacial lakes, like Lake Agassiz in North America, larger than all the Great Lakes combined, break. The channeled scablands in Washington state are evidence of one such flood, a flood so powerful it scraped the landscape down to the bedrock, carving canyons miles wide in a matter of days. Now picture this happening globally. The entire ice sheet, over miles thick, collapses into the ocean. The result? A catastrophic global rise in sea level. We are not talking about inches, we are talking hundreds of feet. The Black Sea deluge hypothesis, proposed by Ryan and Pittman, suggests the Mediterranean breached the Bosporus Strait, flooding the entire Black Sea basin, then a freshwater lake, with the force of 200 Niagara Falls in a matter of hours. This is a real, scientifically proposed event. Doggerland, a landmass connecting Britain to Europe, is drowned. The Persian Gulf, then a dry, fertile river valley, is drowned. Every coastal plain, every river delta, every single place that a progenitor or Nephilim civilization would have built their cities is erased, drowned, put under 300 feet of water. This is the Great Flood.
Science has given us the murder weapon, a global cataclysm of fire, ice, and water. And it happens exactly when our ancient texts say it did. It happens exactly when our impossible temple, Göbekli Tepe, is being built, and then, just as the seas are rising, it is buried. It's as if the builders of Göbekli Tepe were tracking this, as if they built their temple during the cold snap, a cathedral to their lost world, and then, when the final meltwater pulse came, when the flood truly began, they buried their temple as a time capsule, a warning to us. The pivot is now complete. It sounds wild, but what could cause an event like this? Science has answered. The end of the Younger Dryas, a cometary impact followed by a cataclysmic meltwater pulse. The flood is real. The cataclysm is 100% fact. Now, we synthesize. We have assembled the pieces: the archaeological anchor, Göbekli Tepe, the mythological report, Genesis 6 and Enoch, the fringe theory, the progenitors and Nephilim, the scientific mechanism, the Younger Dryas cataclysm. We are no longer in the realm of 100% fact. We are investigators proposing a new timeline, a new truth. Let's tell the story, our story, as it truly happened. The pre-cataclysmic world, 30,000 to 12,900 years ago. A global, high-tech, maritime civilization flourishes on Earth. These are the progenitors, the Elohim. They are Homo sapiens, but of an advanced ancient line. They have settlements on coastlines and land masses now deep underwater. They are the source of the Atlantean legends. They coexist with and study the indigenous hunter-gatherer populations of the world, the daughters of men. This is the golden age remembered in myth, the Fall, circa 13,000 years ago. A faction of these progenitors, the Watchers of Enoch's report, breaks quarantine, They go native. They set themselves up as gods to the local tribes. They teach them forbidden arts, astronomy, metallurgy, agriculture. This is the true source of the Neolithic Revolution. And they interbreed. They take wives, as Genesis 6 reports. The resulting hybrids, the Nephilim, are born. They are the Geborim, the mighty men. They are a hybrid royalty. They become the warlords, the kings, the men of renown who rule over the normal human populations. Göbekli Tepe is one of their first religious political centers, built by humans but designed by watchers.
The warning, see 12,900 years ago. The loyalist progenitors, the Elohim, see this. The human experiment is now corrupted. The Nephilim are a genetic social pollution filling the earth with violence. Worse, their advanced astronomy, the very knowledge they taught at Göbekli Tepe, detects a threat. A massive comet swarm is entering the solar system, and impact is inevitable. They know the world is about to end. The Great Cataclysm Phase 1, 12,900 BP. The comet hits, the fire from the sky. The Younger Dryas begins, the progenitor high civilization is shattered. Their coastal cities are blasted, the sky goes dark, the long winter begins. The Watchers and their Nephilim children survived this, but they are now cut off, isolated in their strongholds like Göbekli Tepe, ruling over a frozen, post-apocalyptic world. The Reset Plan. During this 1,200-year winter, the loyalist progenitors, the god of the story, make a plan. The coming cataclysm, the impact, has destabilized the planet's climate. They know that when the cold snap ends, the real cataclysm, the flood, will come. The ice will melt. The seas will rise. This flood, it is not a punishment from them. It is a natural consequence of the impact. But they can use it. The meltwater pulse will drown the coastal Nephilim strongholds. It will be a natural reset, a planetary scale extermination of the corrupted line. Their plan? Preserve the pure line. They find a man, Noah, Ziusudra in Sumer, Utnapishtim in Babylon. He is perfect in his generations. He is genetically pure. They give him the Ark Project. This is not a wooden zoo. This is a vault, a genetic seed bank, a survival pod containing the DNA of Earth's pure life and the knowledge of the progenitors. The Great Cataclysm Phase 2, 11,600 BP or 9,600 BCE. The cold snap ends, the meltwater pulse begins, the ice dams break. The great flood of all human memory begins. The seas rise hundreds of feet. The Nephilim civilizations, built on the now ancient coastlines, are wiped off the face of the earth. They are drowned, buried under 300 feet of water and silt. At Göbekli Tepe, the Watchers, Nephilim survivors see the floods. They see their world ending. In a final act of piety, defiance, they bury their temple. They entomb it, a time capsule for a future world that will not understand. Then, they too are washed away. The Reset, post 11,600 BP. The Ark, Noah's group, survives. The cataclysm subsides. They land on the mountains of Ararat, the New Highlands. They are the only authorized survivors. They, and other progenitor survivors, like the Oannes of Sumerian myth, the fish gods who came from the sea to reteach mankind, begin the Great Reset. They restart civilization in Sumer, in Egypt, in the Indus Valley. They bring with them the memory of the pre-flood world, agriculture, astronomy, kingship, and the story of a great wickedness, the story of fallen ones, the story of a great flood sent by God to cleanse the earth. Our synthesis, our new truth. The Great Flood was a planetary reset. The ancient texts, Genesis, Enoch, are not myths. They are the political and theological interpretations of a real geological event, the Younger Dryas cataclysm. The purpose of the flood, its function, if not its intent, was to exterminate the Nephilim. The Nephilim were not demons. They were a real, biological, hybrid population, the offspring of a lost, advanced progenitor race and the indigenous daughters of men. The wickedness was the genetic and social corruption this hybrid race unleashed on the world. And the god of this story was either the impersonal natural force of the comet and the meltwater, or it was the loyalist faction of that progenitor race who predicted the cataclysm, allowed it to happen, and used it to wipe their failed experiment from the board and start again, to reset the planet for us. We are the descendants of Noah. We are the pure line. We are the reset. But this, our investigation, raises one final disturbing question. Genesis 6:4, that impossible verse, has one more terrible secret. There were Nephilim in the earth in those days, and also after that. The flood, the reset, didn't work. The mighty men, the men of renown, they came back. But that is an investigation for another time.